My husband secretly planned to divorce me and take everything we built together. But he made one fatal mistake. He thought I wouldn't fight back. In just 7 days, I turned the tables, and he never saw it coming. If you love powerful revenge stories that hit deep and end with satisfaction, make sure to subscribe to this channel, turn on the bell, and drop a comment saying silence is power if you agree. My name is Grace Mallory, and I used to believe that loyalty could keep a marriage alive. It was a Wednesday, late afternoon, the kind of day that smelled like wet asphalt and coffee grinds. I had just gotten home from a board meeting that ran longer than expected. Half my team was still buzzing from the new funding round, but all I could think about was kicking off these heels and curling up with Thai takeout. The house was silent when I walked in. Ethan's keys were on the counter, so he was home. But no greeting, no "hey babe," not even a fake one. Typical. I dropped my bag by the console and kicked off my shoes. My feet ached, my head throbbed, and all I wanted was to decompress. I opened the laptop to check a document Nina, my best friend and our company's financial advisor, had emailed earlier. But the screen blinked and opened to the last thing Ethan had used, an email tab. I should have closed it. I didn't. Instead, I saw the subject line, Final draft divorce filing. And then my name, my full legal name. I didn't move for a full 10 seconds. My body went cold, like someone had dunked me into ice water. I clicked, slowly, as if the words might vanish if I moved too fast. The email thread was long, clinical, cold. Ethan and some lawyer, Jason or Jared or something equally smug, were discussing asset division, real estate, business interests, retirement accounts, the works. He had planned everything, quietly, thoroughly. And the kicker? She'll be emotional when this hits, but she's not the type to fight. She'll fold. Ethan. I read that line 5 times. My vision blurred at the edges. Not from tears, from rage. I closed the laptop, and I smiled. Not the kind of smile you give when you're happy. The kind you give when something inside you snaps into focus. Ethan didn't know it yet, but the version of me he thought would fold, she didn't exist anymore. The next morning, I made eggs like nothing happened. Sunny side up, sprinkled with sea salt and paprika, just how Ethan liked them. I even made toast, poured orange juice, and left the plate on the marble kitchen island. I smiled when he walked in, freshly showered, face smug, towel slung around his neck like a prizefighter. "Wow," he said. "What's the occasion?" "No occasion," I said lightly. "Just felt like taking care of my husband." He kissed my cheek and bit into the toast. I wanted to smash the plate across his face. Instead, I wiped my hands on a dish towel, walked into my office, and locked the door. Then I called Nina. Her voice answered on the second ring. "Tell me you're okay." "No," I whispered, "but I'm about to be." A pause. "Talk to me." I found the email. He's planning to file. I could hear her breathing sharpen through the phone. When? Soon. He's got a lawyer. They're planning to move on the house, the gym equity, everything. He thinks you won't fight. I closed my eyes. He thinks I'll fold. There was a beat of silence before Nina spoke again, her voice low and lethal. "Then we won't fight. We'll dismantle." I exhaled. Not relief, resolve. We spent the next 2 hours on the phone. She walked me through steps like a surgeon prepping for a high-stakes operation. 1. Separate all personal accounts. 2. Freeze joint cards quietly. 3. Secure digital backups of every financial statement from the last 5 years. 4, start a trust, discreet, airtight, and lawyered. I took notes. I didn't cry. My fingers moved fast, my breath steady. I hadn't felt this clear in years. "Grace," Nina said finally, "you're smarter than him." "I know, and meaner when pushed." I smiled. He has no idea. That night, Ethan texted, "Working late tonight, don't wait up." Perfect. While he played chess with lawyers, I was building the Queen's escape. There's something almost holy about the sound of a printer spitting out evidence. Click, whir, slide. Bank statements, real estate documents, gym ownership contracts, shared business filings. By noon Friday, I had a neat, alphabetized folder labeled Insurance, Plan B. Every page was a receipt of my patience. Every signature a breadcrumb back to the man who thought I was too soft to strike back. The hardest part? Pretending everything was fine. Ethan came home that night smelling like cologne and entitlement. He kissed me with a rehearsed kind of affection, the way someone kisses a trophy wife after sealing a big deal. "Good day?" he asked. "Productive," I said. "You?" "Busy, meetings with potential investors." Liar. He was meeting with lawyers. He sat on the couch, legs spread, watching some mindless reality show. I watched him. He didn't notice. That's when it hit me. He really thought I was a background character in his story, a placeholder, someone to take half the blame and none of the reward. He didn't know I had already moved a significant chunk of our joint cash into a private trust Nina helped me open under my maiden name. Perfectly legal, ethically gray, maybe, but I wasn't here to play fair. I was here to survive. The next morning, I went to the bank. I wore a beige turtleneck, no makeup, hair tied back, forgettable. I sat with the branch manager and transferred my personal investment accounts, retirement plans, and even an old college fund from my parents into the trust. When the manager said, "This is a smart move, protecting yourself," I nodded and smiled. He thought I was divorcing a monster. I didn't correct him. Later, I walked into our garage and looked at the Tesla Ethan insisted we buy last year, paid in full, title in my name. I smiled again. He didn't even realize that half the things he bragged about weren't his. 1 week, I thought. That's all I need. 7 days to set every piece in place. 7 days to let him dig his own grave. And then I'd show him what folding really looks like. Friday, 3:42 p.m. I got the notification on my phone as I was signing off a video call with Nina. "You've been served. Petition for dissolution of marriage filed by Ethan Mallory." It came with attachments, cold, numbered pages. Requests for full ownership of the gym franchise, the house, the vehicles, even a stake in my startup equity. He actually tried to claim my shares in the company I helped build from a spare bedroom and a second-hand laptop. I didn't blink. Instead, I slid open the drawer of my home office desk and pulled out my own envelope. My name neatly typed. Inside, a complete counter-petition, with receipts. My lawyer was already looped in, Nina too. We'd been waiting for this moment like chess players watching the king finally move into checkmate range. The email I sent back to his attorney was simple. Per enclosed documentation, Miss Mallory has already divested her personal and joint assets into a secured trust prior to Mr. Mallory's filing. Evidence of financial misappropriation from shared business accounts attached. I clicked send. Then I went and made tea. The house was quiet. Ethan hadn't come home yet.
He was probably out celebrating, toasting with his overpriced lawyer, bragging about how cleanly he executed the move, maybe even planning how he'd spin it to mutual friends. Poor Ethan, left with the burden of a cold corporate wife who cared more about numbers than love. What he didn't know was that I had already filed a motion to freeze the gym's business accounts due to unauthorized transfers. I had screenshots, dates, amounts, all leading to a side LLC he thought I'd never find. What he didn't know was that the house was already mine. A quiet equity buyout, processed 2 weeks ago, filed through a trust. I paid him out without him even realizing it, because the mortgage was under my name and the trust paid him a dividend through a shell he thought was an investor payout. What he didn't know was everything, and it was about to hit hard. At 9:03 p.m., Ethan walked in, loosened tie, red wine stain on his collar. He grinned. "Hey, babe, weird day. Jared said the court might contact you next week." I stood in the doorway of my office, holding my tea, calm as ice. "They already did," I said. He froze, just a flicker. "Oh?" I read the petition. He opened his mouth, maybe to lie, maybe to gaslight, but I cut him off. "I moved everything, Ethan. Quietly, legally, fully documented. You'll get the response Monday." He blanked. "What the hell are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the trust, the frozen accounts, the house, the cars. You filed for war. I prepared a defense months ago." His eyes narrowed. "You wouldn't?" "I did, because you did first." The silence between us crackled like something dry and dying. He stared at me like he'd just seen a ghost. Not a ghost, a reckoning. By Monday morning, Ethan had turned pale beneath his tan. I heard him pacing the hallway before sunrise, muttering into his phone. "She moved what? How did I not? No, I'm telling you, she wasn't supposed to know." He slammed the bedroom door shut. I stirred my coffee in silence. It wasn't even about revenge anymore. It was about precision, about watching a man unravel under the weight of his own assumptions. By 9 a.m., I received a call from our shared accountant. "Grace," he said, careful and clipped, "Ethan just asked me to produce records that you already secured 2 weeks ago?" "I know," I replied calmly. "I have digital and notarized copies. Anything else he's asking for, he doesn't own." A pause, then the accountant exhaled. "I always wondered which one of you was the smart one. Now you know." That afternoon, I received a second call, this time from Jared, Ethan's lawyer. "Miss Mallory, I think there may have been some misunderstandings in the filing. Ethan would like to, reevaluate terms?" "No," I interrupted. "Ethan doesn't get to renegotiate after drawing first blood. Let him read the discovery packet." Another pause. "It's extensive." "I know," I said, and hung up. When Ethan finally spoke to me that night, it wasn't with arrogance. It was with a crack in his voice I'd never heard before. "You really did all this?" he asked, standing in the doorway of my office like a boy who'd broken something expensive. I didn't look up from my laptop. "Yes." He walked in slowly. "I didn't mean to screw you over. I just thought you'd roll over and let it go." I finally looked at him. "That's the problem, Ethan. You don't know me. You married someone you thought would stay quiet." He started, but stopped. He looked around like he was in someone else's house now. And maybe he was. Because the woman in front of him was not the one who made him breakfast and watched him cheat her with a smile. This version of me didn't flinch, didn't weep, didn't ask why. She simply acted. "I lost control," he whispered. "No," I replied coldly. "You never had it." The following Thursday, I got a call from a state compliance officer. We've received a tip about potential financial misreporting tied to Mallory Fitness LLC. I stirred my tea. Is that so? We'd like to review the books for the last 2 years. We understand you were the co-signer on several of the initial loan documents. I was. You'll find my records in better shape than his. The woman on the line chuckled softly. That's what I figured. We'll be in touch. I ended the call and sat back. There it was. The ripple effect. Ethan stormed into the house that evening, jaw tight, face red. What the hell did you do? I stayed seated at the kitchen counter, legs crossed, sipping wine. You moved funds between accounts that didn't belong to you, I said. That's fraud, Ethan. I built that business. With a co-owner and borrowed equity you tried to hide under a shell corporation registered to your cousin's garage. He flinched. I leaned in slightly. You thought I wouldn't find it. You thought I wouldn't look. But I stopped trusting your eyes years ago. His voice shook. You're going to destroy me. I tilted my head. I didn't destroy you. I exposed you. There's a difference. He went silent, just breathing, shallow and rapid. And then, for the first time in our marriage, Ethan Mallory sat down in front of me and looked small. The days that followed were quiet, too quiet. He stopped posturing, stopped pretending he was in control. His lawyer filed for mediation. The gym's board suspended his voting rights pending the audit. He stopped sleeping at the house altogether. But I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clean. There's a difference. I went for morning walks. I played music while cooking. I opened the windows and let fresh air in. I was alone, but not lonely. And I realized that for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of silence, because silence is where the truth echoes longest. The mediation took place in a bland conference room in a law office downtown. Fluorescent lighting, fake plants, a long glass table that tried too hard to look expensive. Ethan sat across from me in a navy suit he used to fill out better. His hands were restless, his smile uncertain. His lawyer sat beside him, stiff and sweating slightly. I came alone. My lawyer had already submitted the final terms. When the mediator asked if either of us wanted to speak, Ethan cleared his throat. I just want to say, I didn't mean for things to go this way. I said nothing. He shifted. I was scared you'd take everything. I arched a brow. So your solution was to try and take it first? He looked down. I guess I didn't believe you'd fight back. I didn't. He looked up, confused. I planned, I said softly. A beat of silence. The mediator cleared her throat. Let's proceed with the review. For the next hour, we went line by line through the agreement. Ethan was left with his car, a reduced percentage of the gym chain's ownership, and a tax bill coming his way from the audit investigation. I didn't gloat. I didn't even smile. I just signed the papers. And when it was over, I stood up without looking back. Grace, he called out softly behind me. Do you hate me? I paused at the door, then turned, calm and still. No, I said. I just don't care anymore. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, the one I moved into 2 weeks after the separation. The windows were wide, the air crisp. My phone buzzed. A text from Nina. Heard you closed it today. Wine or whiskey to celebrate? I smiled. Both. And silence. Bring that too. As the city lights blinked outside and the kettle started to hiss on the stove, I realized something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the absence of pain, but the end of pretending. And in that stillness, I found a kind of power louder than any scream. It's been 7 days since I walked out of that mediation room. 1 week since Ethan watched the person he thought he could destroy walk away untouched. 1 week since I signed my name, not as a wife, but as a woman finally choosing herself. This morning, I woke up with sunlight on my face and no one beside me, and it felt like freedom. I made coffee, barefoot, no rush, no weight on my chest. I played a jazz record Nina had given me years ago that I never had time to open. Time. It feels different now. Stretchy, spacious. Later, I sat by the window and opened a small black notebook I hadn't touched in years, the one I used to write in when I still believed marriage was safety. On the first blank page, I wrote, "He thought he could take everything, so I took back me." Then I closed the notebook. In the afternoon, I got an email from our old neighbor, polite, awkward. "Just heard about you and Ethan. Hope you're okay." I replied, "I'm not just okay. I'm finally mine." That evening, I packed a weekend bag. Passport, camera, journal. There was a flight leaving at 11:10 p.m. to Barcelona. I booked it 2 nights ago, on instinct. Not to escape, but to begin. To choose the life I wanted, not the one I was taught to endure. As I zipped the suitcase shut, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. Strong, still, whole. Not broken, not bitter, just done. And done was beautiful.